Boldwood presents What Happened at No. 13, written by Saskia Sarginson and read by Charlotte Worthing. Prologue. She stands in a cellar, her husband at her feet. He's lying on his back, twisted at the waist, one arm flung out, the other bent across him. She squats down and touches the clammy skin below his ear, the tangle of his wet hair. She can't discern a pulse. She straightens quickly with a gasp. His eyes are open wide, startled, as if he's been surprised in the middle of a task. But the pupils are unseeing, already clouding over. Darkness leaks from his neck, from his chest, from multiple wounds where the blade has sliced through fabric, through flesh and gristle, hitting bone with the force of its thrusts. The knife in her hand shines red. She is standing in blood. It pools around him in a slick puddle, seeping into the dirt floor. She drops the weapon. He's dead. He will never move again. Never speak to her softly. Never lie to her. Never betray her. He will not touch her again, either with tenderness or rage. She backs away from his body, her legs almost giving way as she stumbles in the semi-darkness, turning, her mind numb. The cellar is a dimly lit cavern. Daylight trickles through an open door at the top of the wooden stairs. A baby cries from higher up in the house, the sound escalating into a wail. The shrill noise snaps her back into her mind, into her body, and she finds that she can think. And the thought is, run. Get away. Run away. There's only one exit. She looks up the steep flight of steps towards the open door leading into the hall. She mounts the steps quickly, the sound of the baby outside and inside her head, urging her on like a siren. She makes it to the top. Then her feet go from under her. The world turns, and the only sound is her own scream, and the rush and tumble of empty air. Chapter 1. 2025. Rosie. A house. In Notting Hill. Her house. In Notting bloody Hill. Rosie tightens her grip around the bunch of keys in her hand and repeats the mantra, but words can't dispel her disbelief. Overnight, she's been given a house she's allowed to live in rent-free for the rest of her life. It's crazy, she thinks. The very last thing she would ever have expected to happen. She wants to turn cartwheels and shower blessings on whatever deity is looking down on her on this March morning. How lucky can one girl get? As she and Eli walk into Arundel Crescent, the fumes of the main road drift away and she hurries along, turning her head from side to side to take it all in. It's one of those ubiquitous tree-lined crescents the area is famous for, the houses painted in pastel shades of rose-petal pink, sky blue and lemon sorbet. These homes are semi-detached or detached, 3 or 4 stories high, and they have bay windows, wrought iron first-floor balconies, abundant front gardens. They are gorgeous. They are worth a fortune. Hey, we'll be here for the carnival this year, won't we? Eli gestures around him. Man, how cool is that? We could have a party, she says, smiling at his Californian enthusiasm. Make everyone dress up. No. 13 is semi-detached, hidden from view behind a tall, shabby fence, scrawled with graffiti and pasted with "Keep Out" and danger signs. There's a padlocked door. Rosie pushes the smaller key in the lock. Her heart rate accelerates. Her palms are moist around the metal. The 4-story house rears up out of a tangle of brambles and undergrowth, like something from a post-apocalypse movie set. It might once have been a particular colour, but now it's listless grey, with raw patches of bare brick showing where the stucco has fallen. The ground floor windows are boarded up, and as she moves her gaze upwards, she notices that the frames of the unboarded up ones, on the higher floors, are rotting, paint peeling away in slivers. There are gaps in the tiles on the roof, and the guttering sags. Rosie bites her lip, feeling her mood slip a fraction. Okay, so it needs work, but she knew that would be the case. 30 years of neglect is going to have an effect. Her eyes go to the missing mortar and brick around the wrought iron first-floor balcony, leaning outwards like a drunk. Nobody could stand there without risking their neck. In fact, the whole place looks like a booby trap. Whoa! Eli lets out a low whistle. It really has been abandoned for all these years. I couldn't believe it before, not with the value of property around here. Didn't the solicitor say there was an attempt by the council to reclaim it? Anyway, she blinks up at the house. Her house. They didn't succeed. They are standing knee-deep in scraggly weeds. Rosie moves forward, stepping over an empty beer bottle and the glitter of broken glass, kicking away heaps of dead leaves and dirt. She uses 2 labelled keys to remove the second padlock and unlock the front door. As daylight floods the interior, something is startled into a whirl of activity, and a living thing flies straight at her face. Beak, eyes, claws. She screams and ducks as it brushes past. A pigeon. Just a pigeon. She straightens, putting a shaky hand to her head, but Eli is frowning at her cheek. Blood, he says. It must have scratched you. You need to get that seen to. They're flying rats. She touches the wound. It stings. They stare into the dark hall. Wafts of decay from the drains, or is it feces, hit the back of her throat. Animals have clearly taken up residence, but hopefully not human squatters. They might be harder to shift. This is going to cost a fortune to put right, Eli says, crossing the threshold and dropping to his haunches to examine the broken spindles on the banisters. There's no handy chunk of inheritance money to go with the place, is there? Because it's going to be a stretch on your salary. Nope, she shakes her head. You heard the man. Just the house. He's scratching his ear. We can do it up slowly. It doesn't have to happen all at once. She loves him for his optimism. It's probably good I can't sell it. Otherwise, let's face it, it would be a major temptation. She widens her eyes. Difficult to say no to a cool $5 million, right? Yeah. I'm still a bit confused about the whole situation. He stands up, his hand on the banister. I mean, it's your house, but it's not your house. And anyway, I thought you Brits were all about traditions. Doesn't tradition usually say sons inherit? Apart from the fact there is no son, and we're not in Downton Abbey, as you know, it turns out that my family did things differently. She goes further into the hall and runs a finger through a layer of dust on a side table. The trust is a clever way to make sure the house stays in the family, and to avoid inheritance tax. God, can you imagine how much that would be on a £5 million property? Jeez. He goggles his eyes at her and barks out a laugh. Major nightmare. She blinks into the gloom. Isn't it strange to think that my birth parents lived in this house before the accident that wiped them both out? She absorbs the truth of her own words. She was once a baby here, Her actual parents walked this hall. They might have cradled her in their arms, exactly where she's standing now. The house is hushed and still, a shrine to their final moments on this earth, as if their last thoughts and words are caught inside the dusty air. And your grandma was a die-hard feminist, Eli is saying, chaining herself to the fence at Greenham Common, going on marches. Amelia. She remembers the name. Yes. Kind of amazing to know I'm related to someone like that. And what did Mr. Keynes tell us? It was her who bought this house back in the 70s, when it was a very different neighbourhood. And it was her decision to make a will to favour daughters over sons and set up the trust, and to give away the rest of her money to feminist causes. Eli gives a low whistle. Your Nana was really into girl power. He comes over and takes her hand. You must be stoked it's yours. Even if it's gnarly, you'll transform it. Gnarly. She raises an eyebrow as she gives his fingers a squeeze. Her Californian boyfriend, surfer blonde hair and eyes as azure as a sunlit ocean, with a vocabulary out of clueless. They've been together since meeting at a party 5 months ago. Another piece of luck. She'd been in the right place at the right time. He'd told her his full name when they met, Elijah Olson, but everyone calls him Eli. She'd taken Eli with her as moral support to see Mr. Keynes of Keynes and Randall, after getting a letter out of the blue asking her to make an appointment. Eli had been by her side when she faced the solicitor over the desk in his office, not knowing what the meeting was about. He'd begun by explaining that he hadn't been the Fraser White's original solicitor or trustee. That firm had been taken over by his own 10 years previously. He had given her a paternal smile and read out the will left by her dead grandmother. And although she'd been told since she was 7 that she was adopted, this was the first time she'd known that she'd been born Rosie Fraser White of Notting Hill, only daughter of Violet and Rupert Fraser White. The will stated that the house belonged to a trust set up by her grandmother, and that, on the death of the mother, the oldest daughter of the family would become a life tenant. Or, if the oldest daughter was the only surviving female in the family, she would inherit on her 30th birthday, as Violet Fraser White had done herself. After Rosie's parents' tragic demise, the house was simply boarded up and left to deteriorate, as there were no instructions for renting or selling the house under the trust. Mr. Keynes had cleared his throat. I don't suppose that for one moment they'd anticipated the sad events that were to befall them when you were still a baby, especially, as I believe, they'd neglected to appoint guardians for you. Then he'd gone on to detail a number of clauses. Rosie had listened to them, but they'd all seemed dry and mundane, besides the headline, that she was to take complete and total possession of an entire house, with no mortgage. Under the terms of the trust, she was not the legal owner, but the life tenant, meaning there was no inheritance or capital gains taxes to pay, but also it was not hers to sell. She stands on the dirty terracotta tiled floor now. How incredible that she good as owns these filthy tiles, these bricks, each and every particle of stone and wood, every nail and wire. This house has been here all through the years she's grown, from baby to adult, and she'd had no idea that it was waiting for her, promising another kind of future than the one she'd imagined. Hey, where does this lead to? Eli is pulling at the handle of a narrow door. A cellar, he exclaims. Maybe there's wine down here. Your dad might have been a collector. She hears the hope in his voice. Eli fancies himself as a wine buff. He's already edging down the steep run of stairs, into the black hole below. She follows him to the brink and stops dead. Stale, icy air rises, bringing the smell of old coal, dust and damp. It's as if cold fingers are closing around her throat, She lurches away. She has an irrational urge to slam the door and press her weight against it. "No light bulb," he says cheerfully, mounting the steps. "Can't see a thing. Dark as hell down there." "It can wait." He shuts the door. "Rosie?" Eli gives her a concerned glance. "You okay?" "Yeah," she says, clearing her throat. "Let's keep going." They make their way around the property. There are 2 large reception rooms on the ground floor, shabby floral curtains hanging at windows. The boards outside block out most of the light. In the front room, there's a baby grand piano. Eli runs his fingers across the ivories, and a run of discordant sounds echoes. "Ouch. Needs a retune," he says. "Can you play?" she asks, prepared to be impressed, but he shakes his head. "Nah, I can pluck a tune on a guitar, but that's it." "I wonder which one of my parents played," she muses. "Maybe both. I had lessons as a kid, but I wasn't exactly Mozart, much to my adoptive mum's disappointment." They find a kitchen at the back, looking onto the garden. There's a cracked sink with what look like mouse droppings peppering the surfaces, and a scullery smelling of damp. Upstairs on the first floor, they peer into a large bedroom with a double bed, French windows leading onto a small balcony. The next one they come to has a nameplate on the door. She reaches up and touches the wooden surface. Rosie has been hand-painted in big letters, pink roses decorating the borders. With her heart in her mouth, she pushes the handle and stands on the threshold of a nursery. Her nursery, with a cot in the middle, teddies and soft toys arranged on a little bed in the corner. There's a mobile above the cot, dangling stars and moons, and a rag doll inside slumps against the bars. Rosie leans over and picks it up, a smiling face with embroidered features, woolen hair the colour of straw, a gingham dress on the soft body. The doll has been waiting for her to come back for nearly 30 years. Her eyes fill with tears. She puts the doll down and closes the door. They keep going and discover another room with a heavy wooden desk, an old-fashioned manual typewriter. She touches it, wondering why someone chose to type by hand when computers had been available. A metal wastepaper bin next to the desk is full of burnt paper, sunk into a damp pile with some pale scraps amongst the mess. She picks one out. Inside its charred edges, the typed letter X is repeated over several lines. The last door opens into a bathroom, with mildew on the back wall. Up another flight of stairs, the top floor has another bathroom and 3 more bedrooms, one of which has no bed, but an easel set up in the middle, a blank canvas standing ready, and a jam jar full of brushes with stiffened bristles. The house isn't empty. There are slumped sofas, beds still made up with sheets and pillows, rotting carpets, even old clothes in a wardrobe. There are photographs, paintings, books on the shelves, cups and plates in the cupboards. It was never emptied. She hadn't been expecting that. She isn't ready to start poking into the details of her parents' everyday lives. Not yet. The garden at the back is a small, impenetrable jungle with a falling-down shed. She can't take it all in. There's too much to look at, to absorb. Everything is furred with dust, as if it's Sleeping Beauty's castle. She stops on the top landing and covers her face with her hands, struggling to suppress the grief surging into her throat, choking her. "You all right?" Eli touches her back. She swallows. "It's just a lot, you know?" "Of course it is," he says, putting his arm around her shoulders. "This is your history, right here. One that I didn't even know about." she thinks. A dark wave of regret washing over her. She straightens her shoulders and sniffs. She needs to get back to feeling bright. It's what she does without thinking. A knee-jerk reaction. Put on a happy face. Look for the positives. Never admit to anything but success. Even if she missed out on life with her real parents, she is one of the lucky ones. She had a secure, loving childhood. She has a sudden memory of her adoptive dad, Peter, singing, "Always look on the bright side of life," while doing a silly dance and swinging a 6-year-old Rosie by the hand as she yelled out the words with him. And her adoptive mum, Sally, shaking her head fondly at the foolishness as she turned away to polish, disinfect, or sweep away some imagined germ. When they leave, Eli nudges her. "Aren't you going to take a selfie of you outside the house? Is the Pope Catholic?" She checks her face in her hand mirror, wincing at the sight of the pigeon scratch. She adjusts her hair and applies lip gloss, holds out a hand to Eli. "Sure you won't be in it with me?" He shakes his head. "Your followers don't want to see me." She disagrees. She knows her followers would love to see her handsome boyfriend and pictures of the two of them together. Eli has asked if she'll post about his new surfing venture, include photos of the boards and equipment he's hoping to build into a lifestyle brand, Surf's Up. But if he'd just include himself, she'd have something worth posting. His surfer boy good looks are the perfect selling point. But he's stubborn. She's learning that about him. Once he's made up his mind about something, it's like trying to turn the Titanic. You know what I think about that. She shakes her head, kissing him to soften the criticism. You can't be shy if you want to use social media to your advantage. She angles her face upwards, tilting it to hide her scratched cheek, holding her mobile high, and gives the camera a 100-watt smile. She posts it onto Instagram, typing a message. Fairy tales really do come true. Guess who's just inherited a house in Notting Hill? A wreck. But watch this space for the transformation. Chapter 2. Susan. She's been up since 4. The dentist office was her first cleaning job. She'd enjoyed the silent waiting room, appreciated the peaceful empty rooms with reclining chairs and blank screens on the ceilings. Then she'd had 2 private clients, each wanting 4 hours apiece, as demanding and rude as each other. Mrs. Roberts in Holland Park was probably the worst, as she seems to think Susan's a nanny as well as a cleaner, leaving her in charge of her 5-year-old while she popped out to get a manicure. Susan had fed him packets of biscuits and put him in front of Netflix. Now she's starving. She sits on her usual bench in the public square, tilting her face towards the weak sunshine for a moment before she takes out her sandwiches for a late lunch. Her back and shoulders ache from bending over vacuum cleaners, lugging them up and down stairs. She rotates stiff wrists, flexes her fingers. There's a nip in the air, despite the early spring sunshine. In her next job in Westbourne Grove, they make her wear a blue maid's uniform. They keep it for her, hanging on a hook in the utility room. They have a live-in housekeeper and a driver, and a gardener who comes several times a week. The privilege still takes her breath away. She begins her working day from the high-rise flat she shares with her mum, going down flights of piss-smelling concrete steps when the lift is broken, which it usually is, averting her eyes from the local druggies slumped in the communal entrance. Then, a short walk later, she's in another world, where carpets are cream, kitchens are marble, and she's ordered to toss away food not even past its sell-by date, and throw open windows when the underfloor heating is turned to tropical. She hunches into the collar of her anorak, zipping it to her chin as she chews her mouthful of white bread and ham. She wishes she could be something useful in the world. A civil rights lawyer, maybe. Fat chance. Her schoolgirl dream was more realistic. She'd wanted to be a primary teacher. Even that's out of reach. She kicks her feet at the pigeons gathered hopefully at her feet. But they're on the make like everyone else, trying to survive on other people's scraps. She finishes her sandwich, tips out the crumbs for the birds, and carefully smooths and folds the silver foil to use again. She should get moving. She stands, stretching her stiff neck, and heaves her rucksack onto her back. She leaves the square and starts off, down her shortcut, along Arundel Crescent. She likes looking at the rows of pretty painted houses lining the street. But there's a derelict one down here. No. 13, partly hidden behind a tall fence. She daydreams about buying the place and doing it up. It's just a game, of course, but she's been doing it for so long. She's begun to feel proprietorial towards the sad-looking house. It's been abandoned since she can remember. Must be worth a fortune. She wonders who really owns it, how they can afford to just let it rot. As she approaches the house, she notices that the usually padlocked door in the fence is standing open. She hesitates, intrigued, and peers through the opening into the small, overgrown front garden. She blinks in surprise. 2 strangers stand on the doorstep of the house. A blonde woman and a tall, blonde man. They look like an advert for something glamorous, a perfume or an expensive watch. The woman is about the same age as Susan, and she's dressed in simple bootleg jeans, white shirt and tailored jacket. The cut and fabric spell luxury brands. Her shiny hair is blow-dried, swinging below her shoulders. Have they just bought the house? As Susan stares, the woman holds up a mobile and snaps a selfie, before the couple descend the steps in Susan's direction. She moves back quickly, faking an interest in her phone as the couple emerge. They lock the door in the fence before they saunter along in the direction of the main road. Susan trails behind them, watching them laugh and chat. He has his arm around her shoulder, and she has one of those tan handbags hooked over her arm, the kind most of the women she works for own. A little triangle spelling the name, Prada. The woman keeps tossing her hair around, sunlight catching in gold strands. Susan touches her own hair, scraped back into a tight ponytail and in need of a wash. She increases her pace, catching up to them, trying to hear their conversation. She's got so close that, when the woman stops, Susan nearly steps on her heels. She turns away quickly, pretending to look for something in her rucksack. The woman pulls out her mobile again, holding it to take another selfie with the street name behind her. She grins into the lens, holding up 2 fingers in a victory sign. Rosie Brown, fashion diva, and now proud house owner, she hears the man announce in a teasing voice, turning his fist into a pretend microphone under her chin. How do you feel right now? She laughs. Like the luckiest girl in the world. He gesticulates, turning back towards the house. Your new makeover project, he says. Your followers are going to want to see before pictures inside the house. I'll do those next time, when I've had time to get my head straight. The blonde shoves her mobile into her pocket. Shall we have a quick celebratory lunch? Sorry, can't, babe, he says. Gotta catch up with work. They kiss on the pavement, as if they're in a rom-com, and it's the end shot when the girl gets the boy before the credits roll. She even lifts one foot. Who does that in real life? Susan watches them disentangle and go in opposite directions. Then she takes out her own phone and goes onto Instagram. Rosie Brown. It takes a bit of detective work. There are lots of variations on the name. But then she clocks her. Rosie Brown, senior fashion editor of Nell, stylist, writer. Susan exhales, like a hunter with their finger on the trigger. Got you. Photos of the blonde woman pop up. Images of her at parties, laughing, holding glasses of champagne, posing on gleaming sand beaches, huge sunglasses on. There are reels of her wearing different outfits, demonstrating the right way to position a belt or roll up hems on jeans, 6 ways with a white shirt. The gloss and glamour of her. She grins out at the world, as if she's a queen, and everyone else is there to worship at her feet. Susan can't stop scrolling. Chapter 3. Rosie. Shit. Where the hell is her other shoe? The Uber has been waiting downstairs for 15 minutes. Rosie scrabbles on her knees, on the none too clean carpet, picking through tangles of clothes and discarded Jimmy Choos to try and find the errant sandal. God, it's disgusting down here. Her mum would have a fit. Rosie rolls onto her stomach, stretching to reach under the bed, hoping she's not ruining the black chiffon dress she's borrowed from the fashion cupboard. Got you. She kneels in triumph, dangling the missing fuchsia slingback by its flimsy ankle strap. She stands up, carefully avoiding stepping on the floaty hem. There'd be no way to explain her way out of a heel-sized hole in an irreplaceable Chanel sample. She slips the shoe onto her left foot, sweeps her hair behind her shoulder, and grabs the matching fuchsia clutch from the bed. A quick glance in the dusty mirror next to the front door brings a fleeting smile of self-approval. She's wearing thousands of pounds worth of designer items. Nobody would believe she emerged from her dump of a flat looking like this. She remembers the shock on Eli's face when she'd finally brought him back here. They'd been dating for weeks, and she'd kept putting it off, going to his place instead, which wasn't exactly a palace either. But even after she'd done a major tidy-up in his honour, the poky rooms and smell of mildew obviously hadn't been what he'd expected. She's not exactly house-proud. All her money goes on clothes and shoes. As she settles in the back seat of the Uber, the car nosing through London traffic, she realises they're cruising past some of the grand detached houses in Holland Park, and she leans forward to gaze at the white stuccoed mansions, substantial front doors, reached only after circumnavigating the collection of Aston Martins and Porsches parked in the driveway. These people will practically be her neighbours in a week's time. The house will be habitable by then, because Mum, true to form, is coming up tomorrow to help do some cleaning before Rosie moves her stuff. She's had to pay for a builder to take a look at it, to make sure it's safe to live in. Luckily, the only dangerous thing is the balcony attached to the main bedroom, which apparently needs completely rebuilding. When she has the exclusive use of a whole house, Rosie intends to live like a grown-up instead of a student, keeping the place tidy and clean, choosing sumptuous soft furnishings and tasteful ornaments. She'll start collecting beautiful things, hand-painted lampshades or Lalique glass, maybe. She'll pad around her house in a designer cashmere lounge outfit, instead of eating cold Chinese takeout in her knickers and an oversized old t-shirt in bed. She'll have a fridge full of healthy food, whiz up fresh juices for breakfast, invite friends over for brunch and cocktails. Her every day will be like a spread in L Interiors. Eli is waiting outside the hotel entrance. He's bought them tickets for this event. It's a charity gala for disabled water sportsmen and women. Eli is hoping to make contacts. Seeing her through the car window, he tugs up his sleeve to expose his high-tech, water-resistant Tide watch in a meaningful and quaintly old-fashioned gesture. She gets out and sees his expression soften as he notices the way her dress shows off her curves. He rolls his eyes and holds out his elbow so that they can go in together. "You look gorgeous," he murmurs. "But you'll still have to make it up to me for being late." She keeps a straight face. "I can't think what you mean." Next morning, the beep of her alarm pulls her from sleep. Eli is on his back, snoring. How does he manage to look sexy with his mouth gaping? His parted lips show a hint of wet tongue, and the top row of his teeth. Perfectly straight, courtesy of orthodontics during his Californian childhood. She loves his accent. He grew up in paradise with his mother, became a track star at college, smashing records for the 400 metres. But then he was injured in a skiing accident and spent a year in recovery. He told her the thing he remembers most about the times his English dad came to the States was going to the beach and surfing. The wild waves, salt in his hair, and his dad laughing and applauding. When he came to the UK, the two of them surfed in Cornwall. His dad died the same year Eli was injured, so he couldn't go to the funeral. Now he started his own small company, Surf's Up, to import surfboards and surfing gadgets, and has a grand ambition to find backers for a surf lake outside London. She removes his fingers from her hip and slides out of bed, checking her phone. The selfie she posted last night with the info about the charity dinner has over 600 likes. She scrolls through some of the comments, all of them positive. The buzz is better than coffee. She throws on vintage Levi 501s and a plain sweatshirt. Then she carefully packs the clothes she borrowed for last night's gala dinner into a carrier. She'll get a car to take them back to the office. She empties out the matching satin handbag, tipping out a lipstick, a comb and a tissue, a silver spoon tumbling after them. She frowns, remembering the feel of it in her hand as she sat at the table, clutching it tightly as the man on her left droned on and on. She has no memory of transferring it into her bag. She glances at Eli's sleeping form. He knows his way around her flat. He'll let himself out. They've been spending at least 3 nights a week at each other's places. She's hoping he'll spend even more time with her now she's going to be rattling around in a huge house on her own. It's early days in their relationship to be talking about moving in together, but she has a strong feeling that this could be it. The happily ever after relationship. The until death do us part one. She's meeting her adoptive mum, Sally, at the tube station, and they're going straight to No. 13 to make a start on sorting out the house before Rosie moves in. When she'd phoned Sally to tell her about the surprise life tenancy, Sally had been silent for so long, Rosie had thought they'd been cut off. "You mean this trust was set up years ago? For you?" Sally had stuttered once she could speak. "And the house, it's still full of the original furniture?" There was a pause while Rosie heard her mum swallow, and she knew Sally would be thinking, "Your real, biological parents' things." She'd cleared her throat, loudly. "Are you sure you want to live in it, love? Old places need a lot of maintenance. It will be a money pit, you mark my words." When Rosie had said she was excited about moving in, her mum had sighed and switched into practical mode. "I'll be there right away, love. You're not to go back without me. You need support. We'll tackle the cleaning together. I want to be there for you. My goodness." She'd let out a shaky laugh. "This is a shock." Rosie had half-heartedly tried to persuade her not to come, not with her sore knees. But Sally Brown is the last to complain. The first to bake cakes for the WI sale for refugees. The first to offer to pick up a neighbour from hospital or take a stray cat to the RSPCA. Rosie had been a sort of stray too, a baby unmoored from her family, lost in the world. Sally and Peter couldn't have kids. You were a blessing, she's always told Rosie. Our little blessing. It felt as if you were delivered to us by the angels themselves. Only 18 months old, and so pretty and round. Rosie was 7 when her mum had told her she was adopted, explaining that her real parents had died in a car crash when she'd been 15 months. But Daddy and I couldn't love you more, Rosie, not even if you were our own flesh and blood. Sally has been Rosie's rock, always there for her, always in her corner. Peter had been the same, teaching her to ride a bike, how to skim stones, hoisting her onto his shoulders whenever she demanded it, giving her pretend pony rides. She was lucky to have adoptive parents like them. They weren't rich. Sally had always been a stay-at-home mum, and Peter an air traffic controller. But they'd made sacrifices to send her to the local public school, and had made sure she'd had all the extras, piano tuition and ballet and tennis lessons. They'd always wanted the best for her. Sally is waiting outside Notting Hill tube station, her perm tousled by the wind, face matte with powder, mouth coloured in the pink lipstick she's worn since Rosie can remember. She has a large wheelie bag with her, which Rosie guesses is full of cleaning equipment. Sally has an entire cupboard at home devoted to every kind of spray, liquid, powder, and cleaning tool. She's made exterminating germs her private war. They greet each other with a hug, and then Rosie leads the way to Arundel Crescent, dragging the bag for her mother. As they turn up the path to number 13, Sally gasps, her hand to her throat. This is it. And it's all yours, love. It must be worth a fortune. Only if I could sell it, Rosie says ruefully. But I can't. It's not officially mine. I just get to live in it. Inside, Sally tuts and shakes her head. It's going to take a lot of elbow grease to get this place habitable, she says, already heading to the back of the house. Where's the kitchen? Sally unpacks her cleaning equipment on the draining board, snaps on her marigolds, and takes command of the operation. Right, you said you'd found a hoover here. Let's see if it still works. Otherwise, we'll have to go out and buy one. Luckily, the machine, pulled from a cupboard, starts with a roar, and Sally nods approvingly. These old-fashioned hoovers were built to last. She motions to Rosie. You do the kitchen, she says. I'm going to have a quick nosy around. I'll come with you. No, too much to do. I can open a few doors on my own. Then I'll start on the living room, she says, leaving with a bucket of bottles, dragging the hoover after her. Quicker if we split up, she calls over her shoulder. Rosie is finishing the kitchen when Sally calls out to say she's going upstairs. Why don't you do the bathrooms, love? They've been going at it for hours, and Rosie's back aches. She makes a cup of tea and takes it up, finding Sally in the master bedroom, staring at a bank of framed photographs lined up on the chest of drawers. Mum, I've made you a tea, she says. You must be exhausted. Sally turns, with a strange look on her face. I've just given them a dust, she says, in a tight voice. Do you want me to leave them out? Rosie doesn't let her gaze stray to the photos. She can't look at images of her real parents in front of Sally. She wouldn't be able to control her reaction. She's certain her face would give away her feelings. Need, grief, joy. She doesn't even know which emotions might break free. Yes, for now, she says, trying to sound casual. I'll think of somewhere to put them later. As if she's unconcerned, as if she's not desperate to drink in the features of her birth mother and father. But it would be a betrayal of Sally and Peter, of her happy childhood. Sally nods and bustles past, lugging her yellow bucket. Rosie spots tears glistening on her cheeks. Mum, she calls after her. Are you all right? Sally shakes her head. Dust in my eyes. Don't you want your tea? Rosie trails after her. Too much to do, Sally replies. I'm going to do the nursery, Rosie says. I've already done it, Sally says. Rosie glances over her shoulder towards the bedroom and the family photographs arranged on dressers and mantelpieces. Sally is her usual bright and breezy self, but Rosie can tell she's bottling things up. It must be disorientating, hurtful, even threatening, for her to be in the same house that Rosie lived in as a baby, before the tragedy that meant Rosie became hers. There's something manic in her behaviour, a sign that she's trying to hold it together. It makes Rosie's skin itch, a warning to be careful. Sally can turn into an ice queen if Rosie doesn't do and say the right things. Back in the kitchen, Sally is scrubbing the sink and surfaces with a look of determination. Liberal squirts of disinfectant and bleach make Rosie's nose itch. Mum, I've already done the kitchen. If you punish that sink any more, it'll disintegrate. Sally gives the taps a hard rub with a cloth. I always wondered when you'd start asking questions, she says. You never did when you were little. That's because you gave me such a wonderful childhood, Rosie says carefully. I had you and Daddy. I didn't need anything or anyone else. But now, things have changed. Sally pushes some hair from her forehead with the back of her wrist. Moving here. It's bound to stir things up. Don't worry, love. It's natural to be curious. Her voice is tight. Do you know anything about them? Rosie asks, tentatively. Violet and Rupert. Sally shakes her head and turns back to the task in hand. They don't tell you anything at the adoption agency. I just knew about the car crash. But it was better like that, I always thought. A clean slate. A fresh start. So, you didn't know I was going to become a life tenant of the house? No, love. I'd never heard of such a thing. And we weren't told anything about a will or a trust. Rosie looks through the window into the jungle of nettles and weeds. Maybe Eli can do some clearing at weekends, she says, her voice trailing away, because Eli's happiest when he's firing on adrenaline, surfing or skiing. She can't really see him out in the garden, on his knees with a trowel. If only Daddy was himself, Sally says wistfully. He'd be out there like a shot. But Peter has dementia, and he'll never be himself again. Their garden in Kent had been his pride and joy. Blooming dahlias and prize-winning roses filled the beds in front of the bungalow. He'd kept a neat vegetable garden at the back, and a lawn so perfectly green and smooth it looked like carpet. Maybe I'm ready for that cup of tea, now we've done the basics, Sally says, rubbing swollen knuckles. Good idea. You sit down, Mum. I'll do it. She fills the kettle at the sink. Pipes belch and rattle, the water running a pale shade of rust. The utilities have only just been turned back on and have a reluctant feel. She puts the old-fashioned kettle on the stove, turns on the gas, and stands back as the hiss of vapour catches with a whoosh of flame. That nearly took your eyebrows off. You should get a gas technician to check it, Sally says, and gestures towards the cracked mug in her daughter's hand. And you should chuck that. It's unhygienic. After a replacement mug has been unearthed from the cupboard, and it's been given a thorough wash, the two of them have their tea. And then Sally gets her things together to go back to Kent. She's never away for long. She visits Peter at the Laurels every day. I'm leaving my cleaning things for you under the sink, she says. I've got plenty more at home. Rosie waves goodbye, standing on the pavement. "Give Daddy a kiss from me." She turns back to the untidy front garden and wide open front door. The house is huge and echoey. She's not used to so much space. She walks around, looking into rooms, wishing she could wave a wand and make it look as she'd really like it. Bohemian glamour, jewel-bright colours, velvet sofas, big oil paintings. She doesn't have the money to redecorate, but at least the place is looking habitable now. Thank God for Sally. Her mum has been amazing, as usual. They'd vacuumed carpets and shaken out rugs and curtains together, cleaned and polished until their fingers were raw. No need for a cleaning company to come in and scour away the last 30 years of neglect. But Rosie can't let Sally do any more unpaid manual labour. She noticed her mother was limping slightly as she went off to the tube station, dragging her empty wheelie bag behind her. Now that she's alone, Rosie goes up the stairs and opens the door to the nursery. She's ready for a proper look. She takes a deep breath and steps inside. She hadn't noticed before, but the wallpaper is covered in a pattern of miniature teddies and ribbon bows. The cot stands in the middle, and a small single bed with roll bars is pushed against the wall, ready for Rosie, the baby, to grow into, heaped with dolls and soft toys. A comfortable-looking armchair in the corner is covered in a soft cashmere shawl. She picks it up and finds it peppered with dozens of tiny holes. A moth flutters free, circling her head. She snatches at it, but her fingers close on nothing. She strokes a white rabbit figurine on the mantelpiece, picks up a portrait of herself as a fat baby, sitting on a rug and gurgling up at the camera. She runs her hand over the smooth wood of the cot, touches the mobile hanging over it, little fabric stars and moons swaying, a mechanism to play a tune while it revolves. She winds up the plastic cog, but of course the batteries are dead. She picks up the rag doll. She'll keep it in her bedroom. It's a lovely room, but she has no memory of it. No memory of staring up at the stars and moons rotating above her to a nursery rhyme. No memory of playing with the rag doll or looking at the teddies on the wallpaper. Or her mother's face leaning over. Her smell. Her skin. Rosie had still been so young when that life had been taken from her. Only 15 months. She shuts the door and walks next door to the master bedroom. She stands in front of the photographs, just as Sally had done. Then she scoops up the photographs and sits on the unmade bed with them in her lap, examining them one at a time, looking at the people who'd brought her into the world. Her eyes water and blur, fragmenting the images. It's the first time she's seen their faces. Sorrow tugs deep in her belly. She misses them, even though she can't remember them. Her mother, Violet, has an elfin look, small rosebud mouth and pale blonde hair. Delicate brows arch over violet blue eyes. Her father, Rupert, is taller than her mother, dark-haired with a wicked grin. He looks as if he was fun, as if he was a bit of a one, as Sally would say, a character. And there she is, in their arms, a squinty-faced baby. She wishes she could summon up a memory of being with them. What would her life have been like if they hadn't been killed in that car crash and she'd grown up here in Notting Hill as Rosie Fraser-White? How different from Rosie Brown in a bungalow in suburban Kent. Chapter 4. 1993. Violet. The house is packed, with mostly strangers to her. People snorting coke in the bathroom, cluttering up her kitchen with their shouted conversations. and Rupert is everywhere, threading his way through knots of people, touching shoulders, turning the music up so the smoky rooms are hectic with the driving pulse of electronica. "It'll just be a few people," he'd said. "It is my birthday, Vi. A party is not the right place for a baby, especially not this kind of party." Violet has retreated to the nursery with Jack, keeping the door shut against the smell of cigarette smoke. Even so, the thump of bass comes up through the floorboards. Violet sits in the armchair with Jack in her arms and tries to forget about what's happening downstairs. His fingers curl against her pale breast as he suckles. She hopes the anger she feels at Rupert isn't finding its way into her milk. Hiding up here with Jack also gets her out of seeing anyone. She doesn't have the energy for conversation, couldn't pretend to be having fun. It's midnight when there's a loud knock at the front door, the bell ringing insistently. The music is abruptly silenced. That will be the police arriving on the doorstep. One of their neighbours complaining again. Mrs. Lambeth next door, Violet guesses. Not that she blames her. She hears Rupert calling out goodbyes to people, hears his hoot of laughter. She sighs. "Your daddy," she tells the baby, "is incorrigible." Before she became a mother, she could party with the best of them. Then everything changed when she got pregnant. But Rupert won't let go of his old life. At first, he'd been the besotted new dad. But as the months wore on, he'd become edgy and restless. He makes her feel like a killjoy. He thinks it's her who's wrong. He thinks they should be having sex by now. He was there at Jack's birth, the terrifying emergency caesarean section, with Violet rushed into a blinding white operating room, convinced her baby would die. And then poor Jack, traumatised by his own brutal entry into the world, had been a restless, colicky newborn, screaming and refusing to feed or settle until he fell into an exhausted sleep, tears trembling on his eyelashes, leaving Violet just as exhausted, hardly able to close her own eyes for fear Jack would stop breathing in his sleep. She's given Rupert the son he said he wanted. She even let him be christened with Henry as his first name after Rupert's father. She puts her own finger inside her son's curled fist and feels him tighten his grip. She frowns. Where is all the beautiful, fulfilling love she thought she'd feel? The joy of motherhood? Instead, she's consumed with terror that she's not doing things right, that she can't manage. When she's not afraid, she moves through the days in blank exhaustion. She's a bad mother. Her eyes fill with tears, and a watery splat lands on her son's forehead. She listens to the sound of the party breaking up. Feet on the stairs, drunken voices, the clink of bottles being tipped into a bin. The nursery door opens, and Rupert staggers inside and sits on the bed in the corner. "That was a good bash. Shame you hardly came down." "We have a baby, in case you'd forgotten," she says. "Of course I haven't forgotten," he says. "But it doesn't mean we can't have fun anymore." She adjusts Jack's sleeping head, heavy in the crook of her arm, and carefully stands, lowering him into the cot. As she steps back, Rupert grabs her from behind, his nose in her neck, his hand fumbling through the gap in her unbuttoned blouse to squeeze one of her sore breasts. His breath stinks. She twists out of his grasp and pushes him away. "You're drunk." "It's been 10 months, he slurs. "I miss you, Violet. You're always too tired to listen to me. You never hug me anymore, let alone have sex. It's been over 10 months, and I want my wife back." She wants her husband back too, the loving, funny man she married. She suspects that he resents Jack, resents the attention the baby gets from her. He thinks of it as something taken from him, something lost, stolen. She's struggling to care for her real baby properly. There's no way she has the energy to give attention to her grown-up baby of a husband as well. "Oh, go to bed, Rupert," she says. "You're good for nothing." "Happy birthday to me," he mutters. Early next morning, Jack is crying, sobbing from his bed in the room next door. Violet sighs. Why does her child wake in tears? She longs to hear him laughing in the morning. She pushes her feet out of bed, stumbling out of the darkened bedroom into the nursery to feed him and change his nappy. She has a thumping headache, even though she didn't touch a drop of alcohol. After breakfast, when he's settled in his playpen, she'll get on with clearing up the chaos. The stink of ash and old booze and weed out here on the landing is making her retch. Behind her in the stuffy bedroom, Rupert is still in bed, passed out and snoring. No point in waking him. He's useless with nappies. His skill is in making the messes, not clearing them up. But she can't be expected to clean the house on top of everything else. She'll tell Rupert. No more parties. Chapter 5. 2025. Sally. She stares out of the train window, unseeing, limp with exhaustion. It's the emotional strain on top of a day of physical labour, shaking out heavy rugs, carrying boxes up and down stairs, scrubbing filthy floors. Her knees and hands couldn't take that kind of thing nowadays, but she'd do anything for her daughter. What did a bit of pain matter? Fear had gripped her from the moment Rosie told her about the house. It would hold evidence, and she knew she had to get rid of it. She keeps her hand on the bag beside her. Peter is the only other person who knows what she did. But he's beyond all that, not even recognising her most of the time. His own wife. Except she goes cold at the thought. What if he blurts something out one day? Says the wrong thing at the wrong time? It could happen. It's not as if she can explain anything to him or give him instructions. Facts and memory surface at random times and he has no filter, as the younger generation say. As the train approaches her station, she flips open her powder compact, giving her nose a quick dust, checking that her lipstick hasn't worn off. She needs to keep up appearances, keep her mask in place. They've lived in the village for so long, she knows everyone, and they'll expect her to be her cheerful, normal self. Sally Brown, pillar of her community. When she's out of the station, she trundles the wheelie bag around the back of the station car park to the big communal bins. She unzips the case and pulls out 3 plastic supermarket bags stuffed full and tied at the tops. And after glancing around to check that nobody is looking, she throws them into a bin, one at a time. Good riddance, she thinks, as each disappears with a soft thud. Back at the bungalow, she takes the stack of photographs from the bottom of the case. She glances out at the garden, considering burying them in the flower beds, digging a hole in the soft soil and covering them over, as she'd done all those years ago with the body. Instead, she removes the pictures from the frames and smashes them with one of Peter's hammers. The thin wood splinters easily. She pushes the wrecked frames and the glass rectangles into the dustbin. Then she roots around in the kitchen drawer for a box of matches. She strikes one, balancing it on the lip of the sink, before pinching a photo between her fingertips and holding it over the sink as she sets the flame to the bottom edge. She watches the image glow gold and blue, the heat curling upwards, turning the paper into charred ash. The ritual feels satisfying, She keeps going until they are all burnt. The smoke alarm starts beeping. Bloody thing. It bleeps and bleeps, its siren getting under her skin like a swarm of wasps. She wafts a tea towel at it in frustration, before taking the broom handle and jabbing it so hard it cracks, the front flopping open to expose the wires. That shuts it up. But the noise has unsettled her, her heart leaping about under her ribs. The sink is full of blackened scraps and the ends of matches. She turns the cold tap on full, washing it all away. The last of the evidence swirling down the plug hole. When she arrives at the Laurels care home, the smell hits her, as it always does. Overboiled vegetables, gravy, bleach, and urine. It nearly makes her gag. She pastes on a smile before she enters his room. He's sitting in an armchair, staring into space. Her husband, her once tall, handsome Air Force pilot, then an air traffic controller, is now a hunched old man with drool on his lips. Hello, love, she says, touching his arm as she pulls up a chair opposite him. He doesn't react, doesn't look at her. It's terrifying how the disease has prematurely aged him. He's 10 years older than her, but still, men in their 70s aren't old. She wonders what he's seeing, what visions are playing deep inside his brain. She takes the lid off the Tupperware box she's holding, releasing a sugary, yeasty smell. It's not one of her own. There wasn't time to bake for him as well as helping Rosie. But Peter won't know the difference. And it's the thought that counts, although she'd die if anyone from the WI found out. Look, she says, as if talking to a reluctant toddler. See? It's your favourite. He turns towards her then, and there's a light in his eyes, a glimmer of understanding. Her heart lifts. Janet? His voice croaks. Where were you? I was worried. Sally tightens her lips. Janet was his older sister, dead these last 10 years. She sighs. I'm right here, love. She pats his speckled hands, knobbly with veins. Don't you worry about a thing. She cuts him a slice of cake, breaks off a piece, and offers it to him with her fingers. He opens his lips obediently. A baby bird stares at her as he chews and swallows. She puts a larger chunk of cake in his mouth and wipes her fingers on one of the paper napkins she's brought with her. Well, I went to see Rosie's house, she says. It's in a terrible state, and it's too big. All the time I was there, I felt like I was being watched by the dead. Her left eye twitches. His cheeks bulge. He chews, gazing at her as if he can't quite place her, as if she's someone he met once, a long time ago. But she's determined to move in, so I'll have to get used to it. She can't even sell it. It's like a millstone around her neck. What kind of inheritance is that to leave a child? She slumps in the chair, needing suddenly to lie down. I don't like to think of her there. Panic crawls from under her ribs. I combed the place thoroughly, but I might have missed something. She sniffs, fishing a hanky from her handbag to blow her nose. Do you remember when we went to collect her? She doesn't expect a response from him, of course, but it's a relief to pretend, even for a moment, that she can share this with him. It was like the angels had given her to us. One perfect little daughter, chosen especially for us. And she's a credit to us now, isn't she? We were all she ever needed. We gave her everything. Everything. Peter makes a sudden wheezing noise. He rocks forwards, choking. He gasps, face reddening, eyes open wide. His hands twitch and spasm on the arms of the chair. She looks at him for a second before she gets to her feet and thumps him on the back.